Disney is in the dumps. They are still making boatloads of money, but they have had some giant failures over the past few years, and now that we have seen so many in a row, analysts have done a deep dive into their financial failures, estimating that they have lost over $900 million in just the past year alone. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube membership. Now, starting off with this Bounding into Comics article, it says financial and box office analyst Valiant Renegade recently shared his speculation and calculations that the Walt Disney Company has lost nearly $900 million at the box office in the past year. Now, Disney has dominated the box office for many years at this point, right? They have been at the very top of the food chain. But they have been putting out a lot of failures recently. Even their more established franchises have been failing, and it doesn't look like that is going to really change anytime soon. In a recent video upload, Valiant Renegade looked at 8 of the most recent releases coming from studios owned by the Walt Disney Company, including Lightyear, Thor: Love and Thunder, Strange World, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, The Little Mermaid, and Elemental, and these all fall under very specific categories. The first is new content that is supposed to appeal to modern audiences. You've got Elemental and Strange World, and Lightyear did this a little bit, but these films shoved narratives in people's faces. They wanted to create something brand new and see if it worked with audiences, and they didn't. They both have flopped in theaters. Then you have something like Lightyear and The Little Mermaid, which are made only to bank on people's nostalgia and to update content for, again, modern audiences. Little Mermaid changed songs, you had race swaps, very controversial choices that, of course, people that loved the original animated were pretty upset by. And then you had Lightyear, which was only made to bank on Toy Story nostalgia since it's the Buzz Lightyear origin story, and they also had Chris Evans voice Buzz instead of Tim Allen, which upset people, and both of those did not do good. I mean, Little Mermaid still is in theaters, but it definitely isn't going to make the money they expected. And then you have them just trying to continue IPs like the MCU, because they know MCU films have made a lot of money in the past, but none of these really have. You've got Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, all movies that did not do the numbers that they were hoping. And it also says he shared the estimated production budgets for these films as reported by box office tracking websites, such as The Numbers, as well as estimated marketing costs from outlets such as Deadline, to provide estimated totals for each film, as well as the sum total cost for the films combined. That sum total came to $2.75 billion, which of course is a massive amount of money, but it's not to them, right? Because they wanted each of these movies to do $1 billion by themselves, and they didn't, but they still were hoping that something like Little Mermaid was going to make $1 billion, that, you know, Lightyear was going to make $1 billion, Thor: Love and Thunder was going to make $1 billion, and they have not come even close to hitting those numbers. It says, though, from there, Valiant Renegade explains how box office grosses return to the Walt Disney Company. He shares that typically 55% of domestic grosses, 43% of international, and 25% of the Chinese box office come back to the studio. Next, the analyst shared his estimates for how much money each film returned to the Walt Disney Company and a sum total of returns, and that sum total clocked in at $1.86 billion, meaning they lost roughly $850 million to $900 million And keep in mind, with all of these movies, it's not like they have shared the exact numbers that they have put in money-wise to these films, right? So it could be even higher than that because we only have rough estimates of what a budget was for a movie, what a marketing budget was versus a production budget. We don't know the exact numbers down to the cents, but either way, they have lost almost $1 billion, which is just an insane amount of money to think of. The article also mentioned something that I do think is important to note, and that is that they don't just rely on the box office in order to make money, right? They also shove all of their content onto Disney Plus, so they do expect to make money that way, and there is potential that, they ended up making the extra money that they expected at the box office on Disney Plus and new subscriptions. But at the same time, we don't really have those figures and we don't know for certain. But either way, it's not like they are going into releasing a movie in theaters and then going, well, it's okay if it fails here because we're going to make the money on Disney Plus. No, they still expect a certain amount of money to be gained from the theaters. And then they have other predictions for, Disney Plus. So that is important to point out. But at the same time, we're not talking they're making $1 billion just from new subscriptions for Disney Plus because people want to watch something like Elemental or Thor: Love and Thunder the day they go on. He also notes that while the company has been able to support these losses in the short term with revenues from their theme parks and linear TV, mainly due to live sports, it won't last forever. That can't go on forever. It's just simple numbers, folks. That's why we are here. The Walt Disney Company is just making all of the wrong decisions, not only creatively, but in the distribution channels as well. And it also points out that the company's CEO, Bob Iger, recognized the ballooning costs and the diminished returns at the box office during the company's Q1 FY23 earnings results webcast. In addition, we are going to lean more into our franchises, our core franchises, and our brands. I talked about curation in general entertainment. We have to be better at curating the Disney and the Pixar and the Marvel and the Star Wars of it all. And of course, these are all franchises, right, that we all have loved, I think, at one point or another. I used to love Star Wars after Disney bought Lucasfilm. I kind of fell out of love with it. I used to love the MCU, Pixar movies. I loved Toy Story. But unfortunately, they have done a very poor job at creating content that people actually want from these franchises. And I would love to sit here and say, I hope that they get better, because then I would have faith in them. But I don't at this point. Even upcoming projects like Ahsoka and The Acolyte, we know, are going to be filled with identity politics at this point. Rosario Dawson's gone into interviews and, talked about how there's never been proper female representation in the space, which is, of course, just an absolute lie. And then you have something like The Acolyte, which features all different kinds of actors that are supposed to appeal to modern audiences. And it's a female-centric story. And we did that because, again, there's not enough females. And, the MCU has gone in a very similar direction. And we don't want Thor: Love and Thunders, right? We want Thor Ragnaroks that have some good humor, but have awesome action and look stunning visually and just great stories. We don't want the bad content that we have been getting for years at this point, and clearly less people are going to the box office to see these films that are just going to disappoint them at the end of the day. But yes, right now, as it stands, just in the past year, it looks like the Walt Disney Company has lost nearly $900 million at the box office. And maybe they'll change in the next coming year, but only time will tell. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.